So I'm back with another video, and in this video I will be reviewing The Silence by Susan Allott, however you say her last name. So stay tuned to hear my thoughts on this book. So some things I want to talk about with this book are the characters and how every character has a duality about them. They present one way while harboring deep secrets. So at the center of this story is the main character, Isla, who returns to Australia in 1997 for a party for her father. Take Joe, Isla's father, for example. He seems like a grieving husband whose marriage might be falling apart, but underneath lies a darker history of abuse, physical abuse and substance abuse, well, alcohol abuse. And you take the neighbor, Mindy, who the story kind of centers around, who's been missing for the last 30 years, who seemed like a devoted wife and, babysitter, but kept dark secrets from everyone around her and her husband. And even Isla's mother, Louisa, who seemed like the picture perfect wife again, devoted mother. Kayla, you didn't even read this book, okay? But she keeps a secret and she actually acts out on it. And throughout the story, she, her motives are pretty much unpredictable. And underneath all of that, all of the secrets, all of the lies by these white Australians, this book takes place in Sydney, Australia in 1967 and then 1997. So it goes flashbacks. The first scene is in 1997 where Isla gets a call from her dad saying that he's being questioned by the police on the disappearance of the neighbor, Mindy. So then after that, we get from 1967 to 97, 67 to 97, just doing a flashback of what happened between these two families, Isla's family, her mom and her dad, and then Mindy's family with her husband. Her husband's name, I think, is Steve. So it flashbacks to say what happens, or to tell the story of what happens between these two families, around the time that Mindy goes missing. So we get a little insight into what is going on in the families. Isla is very close to her dad. She's a little distant with her mom because they have marital problems, and she's decided to take her dad's side in this family dispute. The dad, Joe? He has a problem with alcohol, and he's physically abusive to the mom. But the mom, they are physically abusive to each other. Okay, Kayla. And Isla is only about 5, whatever her name is only about 5 while this is happening. So I don't want to give too many spoilers. Well, I guess, I'm just going to spoil it. Go read the book and then come back, because what I want to talk about is a spoiler. So Mindy's husband, Steve, is a police officer, okay? So the backdrop, they have this whole missing person, they have the drama between these two families, but the backdrop is Steve's job. His job is removing Aboriginal children from their family and placing them in these schools to be like re-educated or whatever, to be able to assimilate into white Australian culture and be adopted by white Australians and work for white Australians. So but the thing about Joe, so you think, oh, Joe is this big bad guy who's taking these people's kids, but he's very conflicted by it. He doesn't want to do it. After he removes a kid, he's deeply troubled. He's in a funk that he can't get out. And Mindy's like, just get out of it. Like, this is your job. Why are you stressing about it? These kids have to be taken. Like, the parents are unfit. And he's like, you think that, but these people love their children. So he's torn up about it. And then he realizes that she's going to want to talk a lot, just like her mom and her big sister. Where was I? Okay. He's like, this is wrong. These people love their kids and he can't take it anymore. And he knows that the places he's taking these kids are not better than where they come from, you know? And so he has to take a little girl, and he takes the girl. But he was supposed to take a baby at the same time. But the grandfather was like, please, just don't take the, oh, Jesus Christ, I can't even get into this. Please don't take the baby. So he leaves the baby. But then his boss is like, hey, you only got one kid. You need to go back for the next. And the wife is like, you know, just do this last thing. And then, you know, you'll see if you can still take it and all this kind of stuff. So he goes and gets that little boy. And the mom is like, please, please don't take my baby. And he's like, you know, don't make this harder than it has to be. So he takes the lady's baby, but he brings the baby home. So he promises the lady, I'm gonna make sure this baby's taken care of, and he brings the baby home and presents it to his wife. And she's like, what the hell? You can't just have a black baby here and, you know, nobody's asking questions. She's like, we'll do it the right way. We'll adopt him. We'll give him a good life. You know, his best chances with us. And at first she's like, no, 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 no. But then she grows attached to the baby, and they name the baby William. And that is pretty heartbreaking for me to read, because I think I read this book in, actually, this is the first book I read after this is not the first book. I read another book. The second book I read after I got out of the hospital, have my own little baby that's back there talking. And to think that somebody would just come take your baby. And they didn't take these kids because of neglect, or they took them because they were black. They were Aboriginal. So that was a tough thing. And so you have that happening. But that's a backstory. That's not the main story. The real story is, spoilers, this is all, you know, you have to read the book. The real story is Isla's mom decides she can't take the alcoholic Joe anymore. So she empties out this man's, well, they had a joint account, empties out the savings account and goes back to England to be with her mom. Okay? Joe wants his family back, but he's also, you know, still drinking. But he finds comfort in Mindy because Louisa, that's Isla's mom, told Mindy everything she was going to do. And little by little, Mindy reveals the plans to him. And, you know, she kind of feels bad that, you know, the mom didn't just fess up to what she was doing and left Mindy to reveal everything to the husband, because the mom left while the dad was at work. So anyways, with Mindy and Joe, you know, discussing what his wife has done, and then her husband Steve always being away at work snatching up people's kids. Guess what? Guess what happened? Yes. Okay. So they start messing around, and Mindy's like, oh, what a relief, because she always like was checking Joe out, and she didn't really feel that type of love for her husband. She just felt like her husband was a good man and he was safe, but she wasn't really emotionally invested in him. No, that's what happened, Kayla. Don't say no, that's what happened. Okay, she wants to tell her part of the story. You were like 2 months when I read this book, okay? Were you even? I don't even want to think about it. So this is the main story now. Not even about the kids getting snatched up. So what happens is, so Joe's still on the phone trying to get his wife to come back. He's still messing around with Mindy. Before you know it, he starts to fall for Mindy. And he decides that he's going to get his wife to come back and then divorce her and try to take the baby, their daughter. And the wife is pregnant. These people messy. But anyways, so that's Joe's stupid ass plan. And so then he goes back to Mindy's house. Oh, this is after Steve has brought home the little Aboriginal black baby, and he has to go out and get food for the baby or something. And then Joe comes over and is like rubbing up her leg, and they're kissing in the kitchen. And then her husband walks in, beat Joe's behind, and yeah, because good. And so Joe leaves, and then she's like, oh, I'm sorry, please, I'll take care of the baby, blah 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 blah. But then after a while, her husband's like, I'm sorry, I can't do it. All I'm gonna picture is seeing you in the kitchen with this man. I'm taking the baby and leaving. Now, this was horrible, this part, because in between this happening, the baby started to get attached to Mindy, right? So you just snatched his baby from his mom. The baby disassociates and starts attaching to this new woman. And then you, big bad Steve, making all these bad effing decisions, decides to take this baby from the person he's attached to now, right? So then while Steve leaves her, she's at the car begging, please don't leave. There's another neighbor out, sees Steve leave Mindy there. And then while Steve is gone, Kayla, just a second. While Steve is gone, Joe comes over, and he has, just a second, she's very upset. Steve comes to Mindy's house and is like, oh, I'll be ready for, Joe comes to Steve's house, over to Mindy's house. It's like, I'll be ready for Steve when he comes back. Last time I was drunk, but he's even drunker now. Last time I was off my game. Last time I was off my game, but this time I feel like I can beat him. He goes, but this time I feel like I can beat him. So she's like, no, you need to go home. You need to go home. He's being very aggressive. So this part kind of makes it seem like, oh, Steve, Joe did do something to her. Okay, I won't give the big spoiler away. But then she, a neighbor comes. It's a little girl inviting her to the party or something, and he finds out that Steve is not coming back. But she was able to get Joe out of her house at that time. And so it just goes back and forth. Well, what really happened to Mindy? They find out what happened to Mindy, but the saddest thing, and they just gloss over it, the saddest thing is, while Steve is away, the little boy William gets sick with a fever, and he dies. And he just puts the boy's body in the ocean. He cries, he's heartbroken, puts the boy's body in the ocean. Nobody ever, they looking for Mindy for 30 years, but there's no investigation what happened to this baby. At the end, they find out what happens to Mindy. But they don't, and there's justice for Mindy, but there's no justice for the little boy. And I don't even want to call him William, because that's not his name. They never even give his real name. He was a pawn in a dispute between all these white people. His life meant nothing at the end. Who gives a F what happened to Mindy? She was a grown woman making her own decisions. And this baby has to pay the ultimate price for these people not being able to deal with their lives. Steve not being able to quit that job when he saw it was wrong. Him not being able to say, I'm not going back to take this woman's child. And Mindy for having affairs and thinking she can just get a baby and thinking she can just get a baby and play mommy. It was horrible. Even at the end. So I read that and that was bad. But at the end, when I saw that we still have to get justice for Mindy, what happened to this woman? And there's never a mention of the baby again. He died. He got a feed. Oh, they tried. Steve tried to do the right thing. I felt for Steve. I was like, well, at least he's trying to do the right thing and give this baby a decent life. But then you let the baby die because you have no clue how to take care of a baby. You scared you're gonna get in trouble, so you don't take the baby to the doctor, and that's the end of his life. That you You didn't have to take this child from his mom. So as I hold my baby, you see why it hit so hard. So I do recommend you read this book, and I do recommend you get just as upset at the real silence, the silence of what happened to that little boy. I feel like this author, Susan, she tried to give a voice to the voiceless, but then she did a terrible job because she made the whole book that actually killed a little innocent baby, and she made it all about the bickering of these people who didn't know how to be married to each other, didn't know how to do the right thing. So go ahead. And you know what? This is actually a dollar store. I got this from Dollar Tree, so $1.25. This was such a great read. I highly recommend it, but it did piss me off a bit, especially being postpartum. So that's my take on The Silence. If you've read it, tell me what you think. If you haven't, then I hope you are, no, you should not get this far in the video if you have not read it, unless you don't plan to read it. But you can still read it. You know, if you've never seen Behind Her Eyes, it's a limited series on Netflix, and it's based off of a book. I actually watched this series before I read the book, and I still enjoyed the book. So maybe you can hear all these spoilers and still enjoy the book, but I highly recommend you read the book first. So that's it for today. Me and Big Kayla are signing off. Until next time, enjoy life, because you only get one. Bye.